A real comedy nerd or history buff, you can feel the echoing there. And it speaks to something, that free speech and the ability to do this in whatever method people choose. Some people do comedy, some people do politics, some people are just artists and writers until they find the government comes for them too. This matters across history. Kimmel joking about how the government crackdown was going to grow his audience. Nicole Walls and I just discussed that with the TV ratings coming in. Last night's show was a ratings bonanza, 6 million live TV viewers. Online clips of this monologue are going viral, passing 15 million views on YouTube in under a day. The count is still rising as we speak and report. It's already now Kimmel's most watched monologue on YouTube ever. Now, that type of interest and response to people saying, don't watch this, or we might take this away, or the government doesn't want you to see this, actually matches a wider communications dynamic you might have heard of. When you try to suppress something, you sometimes draw more attention to it. This is called the Streisand effect. For a time when the star's effort to hide and suppress a single picture of her home ended up backfiring and drawing far more interests. So it is a fact that there's more interest in Kimmel's monologue, but, yes, but, I'm sorry, there's always a but these days. That still will only matter in reality if there is the freedom to find the material and get it. The Streisand effect does not work in North Korea.
Yeah, look, he did crazy numbers last night, which I think is a sign that this has broken through. I think about when Tom Hanks got COVID. That was a moment a lot of Americans saw that COVID was real. Maybe Jimmy Kimmel being censored by Disney and Nexstar, maybe that's the moment where Americans see that this is real. But what I think is the most interesting about this is resistance, and I'm here to tell you, even though people got sick of the catchphrase, it actually works. What we're seeing is working is what worked in 2016, where people got together and they were like, this is not who we are. And I think it's a real important and valuable lesson, because if people don't resist, like what we saw with all of the different elites, the billionaires and the universities and the lawyers, when they get together and make these deals with Trump, they are captured institutions. They are no longer within the bounds of the law, because all of these deals are not really, they're extra, at best, they're extra legal, right? They're sort of their own nebulous thing. And so those people have no protection. And so Donald Trump knows that, and he keeps going and going and going. And what we see here is that appeasement doesn't work. And honestly, you really see how when Sherry Redstone canceled Colbert, it was actually really every step got us here, has gotten us to more censorship and being less free.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've diagnosed, I mean, we all know a lot of people that are very high up in their various professions. A lot of people have not gotten to the point where they understand that they're not safe unless they do something. And until Kimmel, I was in a kind of constant low state of depression. And there was something about this that felt like, oh, yes, you can stand up for yourself. You can fight back. It is possible. Everything isn't like the clay hasn't hardened yet. We still have some time.
I would just add that Donald Trump's polling the worst he's ever polled. OK, he's underwater on the economy. He's underwater in Texas for the first time ever. Like, this is not a popular president. The fact that people are scared of him because we're all soft and not used to this kind of thing may be true, but it doesn't necessarily reflect reality. And you can see this from stores like Target. You know, they were boycotted for going against DEI, and it was real numbers. And that's what we're seeing here. I mean, these are real numbers for Kimmel. And I think it's a really good example that people want normal American democracy.
And Michael, the president and his sort of chief here at the FCC seem to understand that comedy and culture and mainstream discourse outside of political nerds matters a lot to them. It matters to how they're understood in the culture. And they have a schizophrenic or split messaging. Oh, it doesn't matter, and the ratings decline. And, oh, well, I mean, if the ratings were low enough, presumably they wouldn't spend so much effort trying to stop Colbert and Kimmel.
Right. I think the reason they felt they had that power is that traditional broadcast television, establishment media, establishment newspapers are in a kind of long-term decline, and they're vulnerable. And what I thought was interesting is the delta between the numbers that Kimmel had on ABC and the numbers that he had on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so there's this big shift.
Weighed in on Kimmel's monologue, saying it was not enough.
What we need is, I'm sorry, I lied, I was wrong, and I won't do it again. And my apologies to the Kirk family and to Erica Kirk. When somebody like Jimmy Kimmel says that the shooter of Charlie was MAGA, what he's really saying is that it's okay to lie about conservatives, that their lives don't matter, that his agenda, his political agenda and cultural agenda is more important than the life of my friend who was just taken from us and robbed from us.
Vice President Vance also addressed Kimmel's remarks, suggesting the administration and FCC Chairman Brendan Carr had nothing to do with his suspension.
What people will say is, well, didn't the FCC commissioner put a tweet out that said something bad? Well, compare that, the FCC commissioner making a joke on social media. What is the government action that the Trump administration has engaged in to kick Jimmy Kimmel or anybody else off the air? Zero. What government pressure have we brought to bear to tell people that they're not allowed to speak their mind? Zero. We believe in free speech.
In point of fact, Kimmel was pulled from the air not after Brendan Carr made a joke on social media, but after Carr put pressure on ABC affiliates on camera just hours before those two affiliate groups, Nexstar and Sinclair, decided to preempt last Wednesday night's show.
We can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
You can call that pressure. Maybe you see that as just making a suggestion for affiliates. Joining us now is Kara Swisher, co-host of the Pivot podcast and host of the On with Kara Swisher podcast, also Harvard Law School professor and First Amendment attorney Rebecca Tushnet. Kara, first of all, what did you think of Jimmy Kimmel's monologue?
I thought he did a great job. It's a really hard needle to thread. I think he came off as human. He was funny. That's the critical thing. He's a comic. He should be funny. Relaxed, actually, surprisingly. And he made a lot of good jokes, mostly at the expense of Donald Trump and Brendan Carr. And those are the deserved attack vectors for a comic in this situation like him. So I thought he was good. And he wasn't too lectury. I think that could have been a problem. He said sort of the right things about the free press. And was, I think, appropriately apologetic and tried to say, if you heard me the wrong way, I'm really sorry. I thought it was pretty good. It did well. So it did well. That's the other thing, by the way. 26 million on YouTube, 6.25. It's sort of a clapback at President Trump because it was popular. People wanted to hear it.
And Karen, you interpret it as a clapback against the president?
I think that, yes, definitely. He was making a lot of jokes at the expense
of
both
those numbers.
Oh, yeah. People wanted to see it. It was popular. The one thing President Trump is aware of is popularity, and this was popular. I don't know if it's going to stay popular, but he certainly did Jimmy Kimmel a favor. He always says he does favors for people's ratings. Well, congratulations, President Trump. You did a great job getting Jimmy Kimmel noticed. And so.
Professor, the president called Kimmel's show another arm of the DNC, likened the airtime he gets to an unlawful campaign contribution against him. Does that argument have any basis in law?
Not in current law. So this has been an idea floating around on kind of the radical fringes for a while, that speech that they don't like is a campaign contribution. And, obviously it's nonsensical here. It's nonsensical in general, but it's particularly so here where there's no way you could say he's supporting a political party. But even if he was, saying things in support of a political party is not a political contribution. And that's, I mean, I really don't know what, it's deeply bizarre.
Joining us now, senior writer for Wired and author of the Inner Loop newsletter, Jake LaHutte, Puck's senior correspondent, Dylan Byers, and staff writer for The Atlantic and MSNBC political analyst, Ashley Parker. Dylan, bring us up to speed on how that went in Disney's mind yesterday.
Well, I think it went well to a degree. I mean, look, as you and I have discussed, Katie, Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, was caught between a rock and a hard place here. They still don't have the affiliate partners Nexstar and Sinclair carrying the show. They still have pressure from the FCC. And of course, they had the overwhelming blowback from the creative community in Hollywood, from the political community, frankly, across the gamut of the political spectrum, from Obama to Ted Cruz. And what were you going to do? At the end of the day, if you're Bob Iger, you have to let Jimmy Kimmel go out there and do what it is he wanted to do. And he went very hard at Trump. And I think he did a masterful job, frankly, in highlighting the concerns here, not the concerns about his show, but the concerns about a broader crackdown on freedom of speech. He said, look, the show that I do is not important. What's important is that we live in a country where this show is allowed to air, allowed to exist. I think he did a really great job there. But this fight isn't going away. The pressure from the FCC isn't going away. Obviously, as we've seen from the president's Truth Social post, pressure from the president isn't going away. And so there's a lot of road left here for Disney and for Iger to navigate.
Ashley, the president was not happy about Jimmy Kimmel being on the air. He posted a lengthy Truth Social post saying that he's going to continue to go after ABC, maybe go after them for illegal campaign contributions, implying that Jimmy Kimmel was somehow contributing to the Democratic Party. He mentioned the last settlement with ABC. Dylan and I have talked about this a lot. Once you hand over a certain amount of money, once you give in to a bully, they're going to keep going after you, keep wanting your lunch money. He mentioned that maybe he'll get more, he says this time. Do you have an idea of how much or how sharp the teeth are behind that threat?
So I think the lunch money point, even though it's kind of a schoolyard bully schema and framework, is actually the most salient and best way for understanding this.
Kimmel gets the big revenge on Trump. Trump cares about ratings. And Trump cares about controlling the narrative. When he's not doing both of those things, he gets nervous and he gets irritated. Remember, this was a man that even when he shocked the world when he won the first time, none of us expected him to win, right? He shocked the world. He was president. It was a bad thing that he was president, but he was president of the United States. No one could take that away from him. And yet, he would always, guys, be complaining and like insecurely comparing. Oh, I got a bigger crowd than Obama, even though he didn't at the inauguration. Or I get better ratings than Obama when I do press conferences. Or I get better, my ratings were better when Biden was president. So my ratings were better than when Biden was president, even though at least some of the State of the Unions, Biden's actually did better than Trump's. The point is, he cares about ratings. He's a TV guy first and foremost, right? He cares about ratings. And Kimmel's ratings, guys, were through the roof that night on traditional media, also like shares on social media, the actual clips here on this website. Trump lost. And it's humiliating for Trump, humiliating for his entire family, humiliating for Melania, humiliating for everybody that has the Trump after their name, unless they're like Mary and have explicitly disavowed him, right? Imagine the one thing that you could go to your wife and kids and say that you actually weren't a failure at, because he was a failure as a president. He was in many ways a failure as a businessman, and many of his businesses went bankrupt running a casino, a business literally designed where you just take money and people leave, right? But one thing he was good at was getting good ratings on TV. He was always good at that. That's what he was good at. And now, a man that he tried to censor just crushed him in the ratings game like never before.